I'll tell you something right now. Dallas is the most audacious city in America, a metropolis that rose from flat North Texas prairie without a river worth mentioning, without a port, without a mountain pass or a gold strike or any geographic reason whatsoever to become one of the largest and wealthiest cities in the United States, and did it anyway through a combination of salesmanship, oil money, and a refusal to accept that the land it was built on had any opinion about what happened next. This is a city that invented itself from nothing, decided that was an advantage rather than a liability, and has been proving the point at considerable volume ever since. Number 25. Dallas has no geographic reason to exist. The city that would become the fourth largest metropolitan area in the United States was founded in 1841 by a Tennessee lawyer named John Neely Bryan, who camped on a bluff above the Trinity River, a shallow, frequently dry, occasionally flooding waterway that would have disqualified the site as a major settlement location by virtually every criterion used to evaluate such things, and decided a city would exist there because he wanted one too. The geography of Dallas is the absence of geography, a flat expanse of North Texas Blackland Prairie where the decision to build a great city was made entirely by human will rather than natural necessity, which is either the most American story ever told or a warning that went unheeded, depending on what the Trinity River is doing that particular spring. Number 24. The Kennedy assassination defined Dallas permanently. On November 22, 1963, President John F. Kennedy was shot and killed in Dealey Plaza in downtown Dallas as his motorcade passed the Texas School Book Depository, an event so seismic and so precisely located that Dallas has spent 6 decades in a complicated, unresolved relationship with the 11 seconds it took to change American history on its streets. The 6th floor museum, occupying the floor of the book depository from which Lee Harvey Oswald fired, draws 350,000 visitors annually to a site that functions simultaneously as a legitimate historical institution, and a reminder that Dallas cannot escape the most famous thing that ever happened within its city limits, regardless of how many gleaming towers it builds around the plaza. Number 23. Oil made Dallas indecently wealthy. The East Texas oil boom that began with the discovery of the Daisy Bradford No. 3 well in 1930, the largest oil field discovered in the world to that point, producing so much crude that the price of oil temporarily collapsed to 10 cents a barrel, sent wealth cascading into Dallas banks, law firms, and real estate offices at a volume that transformed a regional cotton market into the financial capital of the American Southwest within a single decade. Dallas never had oil directly beneath it, but understood immediately that the people who did would need somewhere to deposit the money, negotiate the contracts, and build the houses that oil money required, a calculation that made Dallas the banking and financial services hub of a region sitting on more petroleum than any other in the country. Number 22. The Cowboys became America's most recognized team. The Dallas Cowboys, founded in 1960 as an NFL expansion team that went 0-11-1 in its first season, evolved under coach Tom Landry and quarterback Roger Staubach into a franchise so dominant in the 1970s that sports broadcaster Tex Schramm coined the phrase America's team, a designation the Cowboys accepted with a self-assurance that the rest of the NFL found insufferable and that 50 years of commercial dominance has made difficult to dispute. The Cowboys have not won a Super Bowl since 1996, a drought spanning nearly 3 decades that Dallas fans discuss with the philosophical resignation of people who have convinced themselves that the right coach, the right quarterback, and the right season are always approximately 18 months away. Number 21. The State Fair of Texas is Texas-sized spectacle. The State Fair of Texas, held annually for 24 days at Fair Park in Dallas since 1886, is the largest state fair in the United States by total attendance, drawing over 2 million visitors to a 277-acre Art Deco fairground that contains the Cotton Bowl Stadium, 11 permanent museums, and Big Tex, a 55-foot talking cowboy figure who greets visitors in a voice that carries across the entire fairground and has been doing so since 1952. Surviving a fire in 2012 that destroyed the original figure and was treated by Dallas with the civic urgency typically reserved for structural damage to important buildings. The fair's tradition of introducing deep-fried novelty foods, fried butter, fried Coca-Cola, fried Oreos, has made it the annual proving ground for what the human body can technically be asked to accept. A competition the fair's vendors approach with the seriousness of engineers solving a meaningful problem. Number 20. DFW Airport is larger than Manhattan Island. Dallas/Fort Worth International Airport opened in 1974 after a decade of planning and a jurisdictional battle between Dallas and Fort Worth that required federal mediation to resolve, covers 26,858 acres, larger than the island of Manhattan, and operates as the fourth busiest airport in the world, the primary hub for American Airlines, and the main reason that Dallas functions as the air travel crossroads of the American interior, in the same way its railroad geography made it a commercial crossroads a century earlier. The airport's sheer scale, 5 terminals, 7 runways, its own zip code, a natural gas field beneath its grounds that generates revenue independently of the aviation operation, makes it less a facility than a medium-sized city that happens to be organized around the movement of aircraft. Before we continue, if you're learning something new about Dallas, hit that subscribe button and leave a like. It helps us keep exploring the hidden stories of every American city together. Number 19. Deep Ellum built Dallas's cultural soul. Deep Ellum, the neighborhood east of downtown Dallas that developed in the early 20th century as a commercial and entertainment district serving the city's black community, produced a blues and jazz tradition. Blind Lemon Jefferson, Robert Johnson, and Leadbelly all performed on its streets. That made it one of the most musically significant neighborhoods in the American South and one of the least recognized outside of Dallas for what it contributed to the music the rest of America was listening to. The neighborhood was demolished, revived, demolished again, and rebuilt so many times across the 20th century that its current incarnation, music venues, restaurants, street murals, and an arts community that gentrification is actively renegotiating the terms of, represents its latest reinvention rather than its first, which in Dallas is the normal condition of a neighborhood that refuses to stay gone. Number 18. Neiman Marcus invented American luxury retail here. Neiman Marcus, founded in Dallas in 1907 by Herbert Marcus and Carrie Marcus Neiman with an initial investment of $25,000, developed a retail philosophy: exceptional merchandise, theatrical presentation, service calibrated to make every customer feel like the most important person in the building, that defined American luxury retail for a century, and produced the Christmas book, an annual catalog of fantasy gifts including his and her submarines and private jets that turned a retail catalog into a cultural event covered by newspapers worldwide. The flagship store on Main Street in downtown Dallas, still operating in its original location, is a retail institution in a city that has always understood that the experience of spending money is a product as real as anything on the shelf. Number 17. The Dallas TV show sold a fantasy globally. Dallas, the CBS primetime soap opera that ran from 1978 to 1991 and centered on the feuding Ewing family of South Fork Ranch, was at its peak the most watched television program in the world, broadcast in 90 countries, shaping the global image of Texas as a landscape of oil derricks, cattle ranches, and family dynasties, conducting their business rivalries with a viciousness that other industries could only aspire to. The Who Shot J.R. cliffhanger of 1980 generated a level of international speculation that the show's producers found both flattering and slightly alarming. And South Fork Ranch, a real property north of Dallas that receives 300,000 visitors annually from countries where the show ran for decades, is the most visited tourist attraction in Texas that exists primarily because of a television program, rather than anything that happened there in actual history. Number 16. Southwest Airlines changed how America flies. Southwest Airlines, founded in Dallas in 1967 by Herb Kelleher and Rollin King on a cocktail napkin, a founding mythology so perfectly calibrated for a Texas business story that it has survived decades of fact-checking without being fully debunked, pioneered the low-cost, no-frills, point-to-point aviation model that made air travel accessible to Americans who had previously considered it financially out of reach, permanently restructuring the economics of the airline industry in the process. Southwest's headquarters at Love Field in Dallas, the city's original commercial airport that the airline fought to keep open when Dallas-Fort Worth International was built, represents one of the more successful corporate battles in Texas business history. A company that leveraged a zoning dispute into a competitive advantage and then built an airline empire on the runway it refused to surrender. Number 15. The Arts District is America's largest urban concentration. The Dallas Arts District, covering 68 contiguous acres in downtown Dallas, is the largest urban arts district in the United States. concentration of cultural institutions including the AT&T Performing Arts Center, the Dallas Museum of Art, the Nasher Sculpture Center, and the Crow Museum of Asian Art that was assembled through deliberate civic investment rather than organic cultural development, built by a city that decided in the 1970s that it needed a serious arts identity and was prepared to spend what that required. The Nasher Sculpture Center, designed by Renzo Piano around a garden of major 20th century sculpture that Ray Nasher assembled over 40 years, is by itself worth the trip to Dallas for anyone who cares about what sculpture can be when it is given the space and the light it deserves. Number 14. Silicon Prairie is quietly reshaping Dallas's economy. The technology corridor stretching from Dallas through Plano and Richardson to Frisco, the area the industry has taken to calling Silicon Prairie with a combination of genuine description and regional boosterism, has attracted major corporate relocations and expansions from companies including Toyota, JP Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, and a continuous stream of technology firms discovering that Dallas offers a combination of affordable office space, no state income tax, a central location, and a labor market deep enough to hire at scale. The corporate relocations have accelerated since 2020 with a momentum that has transformed the northern Dallas suburbs from bedroom communities into genuine employment centers, producing a metropolitan economy that is diversifying away from its oil and real estate foundations faster than most observers anticipated and with considerably less fanfare than the relocating companies expected to find. Number 13. Bishop Arts District survived and became essential. The Bishop Arts District in North Oak Cliff, a neighborhood southwest of downtown Dallas that was functionally abandoned by mid-century disinvestment before a gradual revival beginning in the 1990s, brought independent retailers, restaurants, and artists into the empty storefronts of a 1920s commercial strip, is the most convincing evidence that Dallas contains a version of itself that operates outside the gleaming tower, highway interchange aesthetic that defines most of the city's self-presentation. The neighborhood's success, it is now one of the most visited destinations in Dallas, with a density of interesting restaurants and shops in a walkable environment that Dallas otherwise rarely achieves, has produced the predictable pressure of rising rents that threatens to displace the independent businesses and diverse community that made it worth visiting in the first place. Number 12. AT&T Stadium is Jerry Jones's monument to ambition. AT&T Stadium in Arlington, the facility Dallas Cowboys owner Jerry Jones built in 2009 at a cost of $1.2 billion, with a retractable roof, the world's largest column-free interior, and a high-definition video board so enormous that punters have kicked the ball into it during warm-ups, is either the greatest sports facility ever constructed or the most expensive monument to one man's ego in the history of American professional sports, with the understanding that in Dallas, those two assessments are not mutually exclusive. The stadium seats 80,000 with capacity to expand to 100,000, has hosted Super Bowls, NCAA Final Fours, and international soccer matches, and generates enough ancillary economic activity that Arlington financed its portion of the construction cost through hotel taxes paid by people who came specifically because the stadium exists, which is the kind of circular economic logic that Jerry Jones finds entirely satisfying. Number 11. The Trinity River has never been fully tamed. The Trinity River, which runs through Dallas in a floodway engineered by the Army Corps of Engineers in the 1920s after catastrophic floods repeatedly destroyed the city's lower neighborhoods, has been the subject of the most expensive, most debated, and most perpetually unfinished infrastructure project in Dallas history. A decades-long effort to transform the floodway into a linear park, river amenity, and urban connector that has absorbed planning cycles, bond elections, and municipal ambition since the 1990s and remains, in significant portions, a concrete-lined channel visible from the Margaret Hunt Hill Bridge in a way that the bridge's elegant design seems to be tactfully ignoring. The geography of the Trinity's problem, a river too shallow and too variable to be useful, running through a floodplain too flat and too wide to be easily reclaimed, is the physical explanation for why Dallas was built perpendicular to its own river rather than along it, and why the city has been trying to correct that relationship for 100 years without quite finishing the job. Number 10. Tex-Mex cuisine was refined and exported from Dallas. Tex-Mex, the cuisine that combines the cooking traditions of northern Mexico with Texas ingredients, techniques, and portion sizes to produce enchiladas, queso, fajitas, and a cheese-to-everything ratio that nutritionists study from a cautious distance, was developed and popularized in Dallas restaurants and chain concepts that spread the style across the country beginning in the 1970s, making it one of the most widely eaten regional American cuisines before most of the country knew it had a regional name. El Fenix, founded in Dallas in 1918, is the oldest Tex-Mex restaurant chain in the country and has been serving the combination plates that defined the genre for over a century, operating in a city where the distinction between Mexican food and Tex-Mex is a dinner conversation conducted with the seriousness it deserves. Number 9. Highland Park operates as its own quiet republic. Highland Park, the incorporated municipality completely surrounded by the city of Dallas, is one of the wealthiest communities in the United States. A 2.2 square mile enclave of Tudor Revival and colonial homes, immaculate landscaping, and property values that communicate a level of financial security usually associated with small European principalities. The community incorporated separately from Dallas in 1913 specifically to control its own zoning, taxation, and school district. Highland Park ISD consistently ranks among the best-funded and highest-performing public school systems in Texas, and has maintained that separateness with a civic discipline that makes the fictional Ewing family of South Fork Ranch look like renters. Number 8. Parkland Memorial witnessed 2 presidential tragedies. Parkland Memorial Hospital in Dallas received President John F. Kennedy after the assassination in 1963, and was also the hospital where Lee Harvey Oswald was brought after Jack Ruby shot him 2 days later, making it the site of both deaths in a sequence of events so concentrated in one institution that the hospital's trauma staff processed experiences in 72 hours that most medical facilities do not encounter across decades of operation. Parkland is also the largest public hospital in Dallas County, serving a patient population that is majority uninsured or underinsured, operating as the primary safety net hospital for one of the largest metropolitan areas in the country, with a budget and a mission that its 1963 history both overshadows and, for the people it serves daily, almost entirely explains. Number 7. The Reunion Tower defines Dallas from every angle. Reunion Tower, the geodesic dome atop a 560-foot concrete column rising from the Hyatt Regency Hotel near Union Station in downtown Dallas, has been the most recognizable element of the Dallas skyline since it opened in 1978, a structure so immediately identified with the city that it appears on the opening titles of the Dallas television series, the city's tourism materials, and the mental image of Dallas held by approximately anyone who has ever seen a photograph of it. The tower's observation deck provides the clearest possible illustration of Dallas's fundamental geographic reality. A city spreading in every direction across an absolutely flat horizon with no natural boundary to stop it. An urban footprint expanding perpetually outward because there is nothing in the topography to suggest it should stop. Number 6. Downtown Dallas hides an underground city. Beneath the gleaming towers of downtown Dallas runs a network of underground pedestrian tunnels stretching nearly 20 miles through the city's core. A climate-controlled labyrinth of corridors connecting 40-plus city blocks of offices, restaurants, shops, and services that Dallas professionals navigate daily with the practiced confidence of people who have memorized an invisible city operating 6 feet below the streets. The tunnel system, developed organically beginning in the 1960s as a practical response to Dallas summers that routinely push past 100 degrees, and the particular cruelty of a downtown built entirely around the automobile rather than the pedestrian, is one of the great urban secrets in America, a parallel downtown that visitors never discover and residents treat as completely unremarkable, which is the most Dallas possible attitude towards something that would be the defining civic attraction of a smaller and less confident city. Number 5. The 1960s suburban flight reshaped Dallas permanently. The white flight from Dallas's inner-city neighborhoods that accelerated after school desegregation orders in the 1970s produced a pattern of suburban development across Collin and Denton counties that consumed agricultural land at a rate that planners documented with alarm, and the market continued regardless. Plano, Frisco, McKinney, and Allen growing from small towns into cities of hundreds of thousands in the span of 2 decades through a replication of subdivisions, shopping corridors, and highway interchanges that is either the purest expression of American residential preference or the most expensive mistake in Texas land use history. The geography of the Dallas suburbs, flat, buildable, and connected by a highway system designed to make distance irrelevant, created a metropolitan footprint so large that driving from one end to the other in ordinary traffic requires the better part of a day and a level of commitment that residents of denser cities find genuinely difficult to imagine. Number 4. Dealey Plaza froze Dallas in a single moment. Dealey Plaza, the small urban park at the western edge of downtown Dallas where Elm, Main, and Commerce Streets converge through an underpass beside the grassy knoll that has generated more photographic scrutiny and theoretical literature than any other patch of grass in American history, occupies 3 acres that produce more international visitors per square foot than almost any other public space in the country. The plaza looks almost exactly as it did in 1963. A preservation achieved partly by intent and partly because the surrounding downtown developed away from rather than toward the site, leaving it as a kind of frozen civic moment that Dallas orbits without being able to fully incorporate into its forward-moving, perpetually under-construction sense of itself. Number 3. The Mexican-American community built South Dallas. The Mexican-American community of Dallas, concentrated in neighborhoods south and west of downtown, including Oak Cliff, Pleasant Grove, and West Dallas, representing over 40% of the city's total population and a cultural presence stretching back to the early 20th century, has shaped Dallas's food, music, labor history, and political life in ways that the city's official narrative has historically underrepresented relative to the community's actual contribution. The Mercados, Taquerias, Quinceañera halls, and Catholic parishes of South Dallas constitute a parallel city within Dallas that operates with its own institutions, its own economy, and its own relationship to the gleaming towers visible to the north across the Trinity River. And the political representation that community has built through decades of organizing is the most significant ongoing realignment in Dallas civic life. Number 2. Dallas built a serious sports identity from scratch. The Dallas Mavericks, led by German-born superstar Dirk Nowitzki for 21 seasons, won the 2011 NBA championship in a finals victory over the Miami Heat that produced one of the most genuinely satisfying upsets in modern basketball history. A team assembled around an unlikely franchise player from Würzburg defeating a super team assembled in South Beach with a collaborative, unselfish style that the rest of the league spent the following decade attempting to replicate. The Dallas Stars, the NHL franchise that relocated from Minnesota in 1993 and won the Stanley Cup in 1999 on Brett Hull's controversial overtime goal, gave Dallas a hockey identity in a city with no winter to speak of, a demographic improbability that the Stars fan base has fully committed to, filling the American Airlines Center with a hockey culture imported from nowhere and maintained entirely by choice. Number 1. Dallas is pure American ambition made physical. The final and most defining fact about Dallas is that this city, built without geographic justification on flat prairie, powered by oil money that arrived before the infrastructure existed to absorb it, shaped by a civic psychology that treats limitation as a temporary condition rather than a permanent fact, and currently receiving corporate relocations, population growth, and capital investment at a rate that makes it one of the fastest-growing major cities in the country, is the most honest expression of what America actually believes about itself rather than what it likes to think it believes. Every other great American city has some natural advantage that explains its existence: a harbor, a river, a mountain pass, a resource deposit. And Dallas has none of those things. Only the decision to exist and the sustained refusal to reconsider that decision regardless of what the geography, the Trinity River, or the summer heat has to say about it. That is either the defining American story or a cautionary tale about the consequences of wanting something badly enough to build an entire metropolis around the wanting, and Dallas has never once slowed down long enough to determine which one it is. Now that you know these 25 facts about Dallas, tell us which one surprised you the most. Drop it in the comments and let's keep exploring the hidden stories of every American city together. If you have watched this video to the end, go ahead and hype this video. It's something new YouTube is doing, and it would really help this video out. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.